You're always so sensitive, my mother snapped as I pulled my daughter away from the table. Her new white blouse soaked through with a thick green smoothie mix my sister had just dumped over her head for a TikTok video. The laughter around the dining room was immediate and loud. My aunt was already clapping. My father had his hand pressed to his mouth, shoulders shaking, and my sister Kayla stood there holding her phone horizontally, the camera still rolling, grinning like she had just delivered the punchline of the decade. Chloe was 15 years old. She had just been accepted into the early admission program at Whitmore Academy, one of the most competitive preparatory schools in the state. We were supposed to be celebrating her. My mother had insisted on hosting the dinner at her house. She had said it would be more meaningful that way. A family celebration, she had called it. I should have known better. I had spent the entire afternoon getting Chloe ready. She had been nervous all week, quiet in the way she gets when something matters too much to say out loud. She had picked out a white blouse with small pearl buttons and a navy skirt that she said made her feel grown up. She had asked me 3 times if she looked okay. I had told her she looked beautiful, and I meant it, because she did. She looked like the kind of young woman who knew exactly where she was going. We arrived at my mother's house at 6. Kayla was already there, her ring light set up in the corner of the living room like a piece of furniture no one questioned anymore. She was 23 years old and had spent the last 2 years trying to crack 50,000 followers, funding her content creation habit with money she borrowed from our parents and never paid back. She called herself a wellness influencer. She filmed what she ate, what she wore, what she thought about at 2 in the morning. She had recently pivoted to prank content because, according to her, it performed better with the algorithm. Dinner was fine for the first hour. My father asked Chloe questions about the school in that stiff, formal way he has when he is trying to show interest without actually feeling it. My mother kept refilling the breadbasket and talking about a neighbor whose daughter had gotten into a similar program 3 years ago, making sure to mention that the neighbor's daughter had also received a full scholarship, which Chloe had not. Not yet, I reminded my mother. She smiled the way she always does when she wants to dismiss something without appearing to. Kayla barely touched her food. She kept glancing at her phone, adjusting the angle of her ring light, whispering into the camera for a few seconds at a time before setting it back down. I noticed it. I told myself it was nothing. That was my first mistake. We had just finished the main course when my mother disappeared into the kitchen for the cake. My father leaned back in his chair and started talking to my uncle about something on the news. The table relaxed. Chloe was showing my aunt a photo on her phone of the Whitmore campus, pointing out the library building she had already fallen in love with from the virtual tour. I got up to help my mother carry the cake out. I was in the kitchen for maybe 90 seconds. I heard Chloe's voice first, high and startled and confused. Then I heard the sound, a wet, sloshing crash, followed by the collective inhale of 6 people, and then the laughter, erupting like something they had been holding back. I walked back into the dining room. Chloe was standing at the end of the table. Her white blouse was completely saturated. The green smoothie blend, something thick with spinach and protein powder, and whatever else Kayla had prepared ahead of time in a sealed pitcher, had drenched her from the crown of her head down to her skirt. It was dripping off her chin. It was running into her eyes. She had her arms held out slightly from her sides, the way people do when they don't know what to touch. She wasn't crying yet. She was in that moment right before the crying, when the brain is still trying to process what just happened, and the body hasn't caught up. Kayla was behind her, laughing so hard she was bent at the waist. Her phone was positioned on a small tripod at the end of the table, already rolling. She had set this up. She had prepared the picture. She had placed the camera. This was not an accident or an impulse. She had planned every second of it, and then waited for the right moment when I was out of the room. Chloe's face! Kayla gasped, wiping tears from her eyes. Oh my God, she had no idea. Did you guys see her face? My aunt was laughing. My uncle had his napkin pressed to his mouth. My father was shaking his head, smiling, like this was a minor inconvenience that had gone slightly funnier than expected. My mother walked in behind me carrying the cake. She looked at Chloe. She looked at the camera. She looked at Kayla. She set the cake on the counter and laughed. I crossed the dining room in 4 steps. I got to Chloe and put my hands on her shoulders and looked at her face. The smoothie was running into her left eye and she was blinking fast, trying to clear it. Her lower lip was trembling. She was looking at me with an expression I will never forget for the rest of my life. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was the look of someone asking a question they already know the answer to. Why is no one stopping this? Are you okay? Can you see? I asked her quietly. My eye burns, she whispered. I turned around. That needs to come down, I said, pointing at the tripod camera. My voice was level. I had not raised it yet. Kayla wiped her eyes. Oh, relax. It's a smoothie. It's literally vegetables. She's fine. Her eye is burning. Take the camera down. I'm not taking it down. Do you know how good this content is? This is going to hit 50,000 views by morning. Chloe, say hi to the camera. You're famous now, babe. She's 15, I said. She's fine, Kayla repeated. She turned back to the camera and made a face, rolling her eyes at the lens like she was inviting her audience to laugh at me along with her. I walked to the tripod and took the phone off it and held it face down. The laughter stopped. Give me my phone, Kayla said. No. Give it back right now. I was live. You just killed my live stream. Good. My mother stepped forward. She was using her quiet voice, the one that means she is genuinely angry rather than performatively upset. Put the phone down and let your sister finish her content. She was just having fun. You are making a scene out of nothing. Chloe's eye is burning. That's not nothing. It's a smoothie, my father said from his chair. He had not moved. He had not gotten up to check on his granddaughter. Stop catastrophizing. I want you to look at her, I said. I kept my voice steady. I turned so they could all see Chloe standing there, soaked and shaking slightly, a thin green streak running down the side of her neck and staining the pearl collar of her blouse. This is your granddaughter. She was being celebrated tonight. You are sitting there laughing. My mother made a sound like I had said something ridiculous. She's fine. Kayla does this kind of content all the time. It's just a prank. You need to stop being so dramatic about everything. Dramatic, I repeated. Yes, dramatic, like you've always been. Everything is a crisis with you. Kayla was having fun. This is a celebration. Don't ruin it. I looked at the rest of the table. My uncle had gone quiet. My aunt was studying the tablecloth. They were not going to say anything. They never did. In this family, you laughed along with whatever my mother decided was funny, or you sat very still and waited for it to be over. No one had ever stood in the gap for me when I was young. No one was going to stand in it for Chloe tonight. Apologize to Chloe, I said to Kayla. Kayla blinked. I'm not apologizing. She knew I do prank content. She knows how this goes. She is 15 years old, and she just got soaked in front of your camera without her consent. Apologize. You owe me my phone back is what you owe me. You interrupted a live stream. Do you have any idea how much that costs in reach? Give me my phone. I looked down at the phone in my hand. Then I set it on the table. I didn't throw it. I want to be clear about that. I set it down with more control than I felt, and then I walked back to Chloe and put my arm around her shoulders. We're leaving, I said. If you walk out of this house, my mother said, her voice dropping to the register she uses when she means to frighten, don't expect an apology. Don't expect to be included in Christmas. Don't come crawling back when you want help with Chloe's tuition and find out we've already decided to help your sister instead. I kept walking. You are so ungrateful, she called after me. After everything I have done for you, I did not turn around. I guided Chloe through the entryway and out the front door. As I closed it behind me, I could already hear Kayla's voice picking back up, narrating to her audience, explaining what had just happened, placing herself firmly in the center of the story as the wronged party. The walk to my car felt very long. Chloe walked beside me without saying anything. I buckled her into the passenger seat. She was still blinking fast. A thin crust was forming along her hairline where the smoothie was beginning to dry. I pulled out of the driveway without looking back at the house. We stopped at a pharmacy 2 blocks away. I bought saline eye drops, a bottle of water, and a clean washcloth from the travel section. I sat with Chloe in the passenger seat for 20 minutes, flushing her eye gently, wiping the residue from her hairline, making her look at me and track my finger to make sure her vision was clear. It was. The burning faded. But I drove her to an urgent care clinic anyway, because she had a scholarship interview in 4 days, and I was not going to spend the next week wondering if there had been something in that mixture that I had missed. The doctor at the clinic was young and thorough. She documented everything, She wrote in the chart that Chloe had presented with eye irritation following exposure to an unknown liquid substance. She asked what happened. I told her. Briefly. Factually. She looked at me for a moment and then asked whether I would like her to make a note that this had occurred in a domestic setting involving an adult family member. I said yes. I wanted everything documented. We drove home after that. Chloe changed into pajamas without being asked and sat at the kitchen counter while I made her a cup of chamomile tea. She was quiet in the specific way that precedes a real conversation, the kind where a person is organizing their thoughts before they trust them to words. Grandma laughed, she finally said. She wasn't asking. She was stating it, the way you state something that has just rearranged your understanding of the world. Yes, I said. She thought it was funny that I was covered in that stuff. She did. Chloe wrapped both hands around her mug. I've always kind of known that Grandma doesn't really see me. Like, she sees a version of me that's useful for things. The graduation photo. The story she can tell her friends. But not actually me. She paused. Tonight confirmed it. I didn't try to argue with her. I didn't soften it. She was 15 and she was right, and she deserved to have her perception validated instead of managed. I'm sorry. I didn't protect you better, I said. I shouldn't have left the table. That's not your fault, she said quickly. I'm still sorry. She looked at me. What are you going to do? I'm going to let tonight settle, I said. And then I'm going to think clearly. My phone had been buzzing in my pocket since we left the house. I hadn't looked at it. I took it out now and set it on the counter face up. The notifications were stacked in a column. My mother. You embarrassed this entire family tonight. Kayla is devastated. You need to call her and apologize. My father. Your behavior was unacceptable. Your sister's camera cost $400, and she says you cracked the screen when you threw it. You'll be paying to replace that. Kayla, did you see the comments on my video? Everyone thinks you're insane. It already has 22,000 views. You should probably deactivate your Facebook because it's not going to be pretty. My mother again. I mean it. Call Kayla tonight. She's crying. This is exactly the kind of thing that tears families apart, and you are the one doing it. I opened Facebook. Kayla had posted a clip. Not the part where she tipped the pitcher. She had edited around that. What she posted was a 9-second clip of me taking her phone off the tripod. Shot from another angle, probably her secondary camera, with the caption, "My sister assaulted me at our family dinner because she can't handle me having a little fun. Sending love to everyone who shows up for me." She had tagged our town. She had tagged the date. My mother had already liked it. 3 of my cousins had shared it. The comments were exactly what I expected. Strangers who had never met me, calling me controlling, jealous, unstable. Someone had found my Facebook profile through my mother's page and posted my name. Kayla had pinned a comment from a follower that said, "Cut toxic family off, sis. You're an icon." She had responded with a heart emoji. My hands were steady. That surprised me. A few years ago, that kind of pile-on would have cracked me open. I would have been drafting responses at midnight, trying to explain myself to people who had already decided. But I sat there at my kitchen counter looking at it, and what I felt was not panic. It was something much quieter. A door closing. I put Chloe to bed. She was asleep within minutes, exhausted the way you get after your body has spent several hours holding something in. I went back to the kitchen and poured a glass of water and sat down at my desk. I had intended to draft something to post, a simple statement of what actually happened, for the friends and colleagues who might see Kayla's video and wonder. But as I reached across the desk to move a stack of folders out of the way, a large brown envelope slid off the edge and landed on the floor. I recognized it immediately. It was from the title company. I had been meaning to file it for months and kept moving it from one surface to another without actually dealing with it. I picked it up. I sat back down. 5 years ago, my parents had a problem. My father had guaranteed a business loan for my uncle's contracting company, which collapsed, and the liability had come back on him. My parents were looking at a significant debt. My mother's solution, as it often is, was to restructure assets so the exposure could be minimized. She had come to me specifically because I had, at that point, an excellent credit rating, a stable income, and no debt of my own. The proposition was this. My parents owned a 2-unit investment property on the east side of town, a duplex. They had purchased it years ago as a rental income property. If they transferred it out of their names, it would be protected. They needed someone they trusted to hold it. They needed me. My mother had sat across from me at this same kitchen table, holding my hands the way she does when she is performing sincerity, and said, "I know this is a lot to ask. We will always take care of you for this. You are the responsible one. You are the one we can count on." So I had taken the transfer. The duplex was deeded into my name. I was the sole owner of record. My parents continued to manage it, collect the rent, keep the income. Kayla had, at some point in the past 18 months, moved into one of the units. She paid no rent. She had turned it into what she called her content space, running her ring lights and her cameras out of a 2-bedroom unit that I owned outright. I had never thought much about it. I had let it sit in the back of my mind as one of those family arrangements that you don't examine too closely, because examining it would require a confrontation. And I was someone who avoided confrontation. I had been avoiding it my entire life. I opened the envelope and spread the documents on the desk. Deed. Transfer of title. Property address. My name. My name alone, typed cleanly in the owner field on every page. There was also a lease agreement, a document my parents had asked me to sign when we set the arrangement up. A formality, my father's lawyer had said. Just to protect everyone. I found it at the bottom of the stack. I had never read it carefully. I read it now. The term was 2 years. The start date was August 1st, 2022. The end date was August 1st, 2024. I looked at the date on my phone. It was August 22nd, 2024. The lease had been expired for 3 weeks. I sat very still. The kitchen was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. I read the document again from the beginning. Slowly this time, the way I read financial statements at work, looking for the language that tells you where the real risk is. The clause I was looking for was on page 4. In the event of tenant default, violation of terms, or conduct that constitutes harassment, damage to owner reputation, or illegal activity, the owner may issue notice with accelerated timeline at owner's discretion. Kayla had posted a video across her public social media platforms of an incident that occurred on property she did not own. She had publicly named me, tagged our location, and allowed her followers to harass me. The camera equipment she was using to do this was sitting in my apartment. My phone rang. It was my mother. It was 11:47 at night. I answered. "I hope you're proud of yourself," she said. She wasn't hissing this time. She was using the cold, quiet voice, which is worse. Kayla has been crying for 3 hours. Her live stream died right at the peak. She had a brand partnership pitch tomorrow morning that she is now too upset to prepare for. "You have set her back significantly. Chloe's eye is documented," I said. "I took her to urgent care. There's a record." A pause. "That is completely unnecessary and frankly embarrassing." It was a smoothie. The doctor disagrees. "No one is going to care about a smoothie," she said. "What people are going to care about is the video Kayla posted of you acting like a lunatic at a family dinner. I am giving you the chance to get ahead of this. You will post an apology tonight. You will acknowledge that you overreacted and that you damaged Kayla's equipment. You will Venmo her $600 for the camera screen and for the lost revenue from the interrupted stream. If you do that, I can get Kayla to take the video down by morning, and this goes away. And if I don't, then I let it run," she said simply. Kayla's audience is engaged. They will find your workplace. They will find your accounts. I have watched this happen to other people, and it is not pleasant. Is that the environment you want Chloe growing up in? Your daughter is about to start at a new school. Do you want her being the girl with the crazy mother who attacked her aunt? The word Chloe in her mouth made something in me go flat and cold. "I understand your position," I said. "Good," she said. "Send the money tonight. I'll make sure Kayla sees it first thing. I'll handle it my way," I said. She took that as agreement. "Don't make me follow up," she said, and hung up. I sat at the desk for a long time after that. I did not cry. I did not draft an apology. I looked at the documents spread across the desk, and I thought about every time I had made myself smaller to fit into a space they had assigned for me. Every holiday I had hosted and been thanked for only in passing. Every boundary I had softened because my mother's comfort mattered more than my own. Every conversation I had rerouted away from the truth because keeping the peace felt like a form of love, even though it wasn't. I thought about Chloe looking at herself in the pharmacy parking lot, smoothie still drying in her hair, saying, "Grandma thought it was funny that I was hurt." I went to bed at 2 in the morning and slept better than I expected. At 7:50 the next morning, I called my property manager. I used the service for the duplex, a local firm that handled the rental on the second unit, the one occupied by a legitimate tenant. I told them I needed to formally list the property for sale. Full market value. I wanted professional photos done within the week. I was not in a rush, but I was motivated. At 8:30, I drafted a document on my laptop. It was a notice to vacate. I was not a lawyer, so I kept the language simple and factual. I stated the property address. I stated that I was the owner of record. I stated that the lease agreement covering the first floor unit had expired on August 1st of this year and had not been renewed. I stated that the occupant was therefore in holdover tenancy at will, and that as the owner, I was exercising my right to terminate that arrangement with 30 days' notice. I stated that the unit should be vacated and returned to me in its original condition no later than September 22nd. I had a friend who was a paralegal review it during her lunch break and tell me if the language was sound. She told me it was. She also told me to send it certified mail and keep the receipt. At 2 in the afternoon, I drove to the post office. At 2:15, the letter was sent. I did not tell anyone. I did not post anything on social media. I went home and made dinner for Chloe and helped her practice for her Whitmore interview and went to bed at a reasonable hour. 4 days later, my phone lit up. My father, calling. Then my mother. Then Kayla. Then my father again. Then a number I didn't recognize, which turned out to be my aunt calling from her landline because she had apparently heard something and wanted to weigh in. I let every call go to voicemail. I was at my desk at work when I finally listened to them during my afternoon break. My father's voice was different from the last time we'd spoken. The authority had gone out of it. He sounded confused, which was unusual for him, and underneath the confusion was something else, something I recognized as the specific fear of a person who has just realized they were not as protected as they thought. "I got a piece of mail," he said. "It's addressed from you. It has legal language. It says Kayla has to leave the apartment. I don't understand what this is. Call me back." My mother's message was not calm. She had moved past confusion and arrived directly at fury. "What is this letter? What do you think you're doing? That is our property. You are on that deed as a favor to us, as a family arrangement, and you do not get to use it as a weapon because you are upset about a dinner party. You call this off right now. You call it off today, or I will have my lawyer involved by the end of the week." Kayla's message was the one I had been waiting for without knowing I was waiting for it. Her voice had none of the bright performance quality it usually carried. She sounded young. "My studio is here. All my equipment is here. My backdrop wall is here. I have a pitch call on Friday with a brand. You can't be serious. You cannot be serious right now. Call me back." I did not call any of them back. I typed a single text message and sent it to all 3 of them individually. "The property at address is mine. The lease expired 3 weeks ago and was not renewed. The notice you received is valid. You have until September 22nd to vacate Unit 1. My property manager will handle the walkthrough and key return. Please do not contact me directly. If you have legal questions, have your attorney contact mine." Then I blocked all 3 numbers. I also blocked them on every social media platform. Not from anger. From clarity. The kind of clarity that only comes when you have finally stopped negotiating with people who were never negotiating in good faith. The next month was not quiet. My aunt sent a long email that I read once and archived without responding. A cousin texted me from a number I hadn't blocked yet, saying that my mother was talking about hiring a lawyer, that I was going to regret this. I forwarded it to my property manager and went on with my day. The legal threat never materialized. There was nothing to threaten with. The documents were clean, the lease was expired, and my name was on every page of the deed. Kayla posted 2 more videos about me. Her audience was briefly engaged, and then the algorithm moved on to something else, the way it always does. The comment section filled with strangers calling me terrible things for a few days, and then those strangers forgot about me entirely. The video where she dumped the picture on Chloe never got posted, presumably because it made her look worse than it made me look. Or perhaps she simply never found it among the clips on the phone I had interrupted. Either way, it was gone. The property sold in 31 days. The buyer was a couple in their early 30s who wanted to live in one unit and rent the other. The sale closed on a Thursday afternoon. I was in my car in a parking garage when the title company called to confirm the wire transfer had gone through. I sat in the car for a few minutes after I hung up. I thought about the dinner table and Chloe standing there with her arms out, the smoothie cooling on her skin, the laughter I had heard before I even got back into the room. I thought about every time I had driven to that house and sat at that table and told myself that this time would be different, that this time my mother would see me, that this time Chloe would feel like she belonged. I thought about how much energy I had spent trying to make that true. I put the car in drive. I had made an appointment that afternoon to tour a rental in a school district I had been researching for 2 months. A 3-bedroom townhouse with a small backyard and a quiet street, and a middle and high school that Whitmore students frequently transferred from. The kind of neighborhood where no one would know my sister's account name or care. I picked Chloe up from school at 3:30. She got into the car carrying her backpack and a folder of campus information that her advisor had given her. She had been accepted into the full scholarship track the week before. She had called me from the school office when she found out, and I had cried in the bathroom at work and told no one. "Where are we going?" she asked, buckling her seatbelt. "I want to show you something," I said. The townhouse was on a tree-lined street. The landlord had left the key in a lockbox for us and let us walk through on our own. Chloe went slowly from room to room. She stood in the larger bedroom for a long time, looking out the window at the backyard, which had a small garden bed along the fence that the previous tenant had left planted with herbs. "This would be my room?" she asked. "If you want it." She turned around. "Can we afford it?" "Yes," I said, comfortably. She looked at the window again. She was thinking in the way she does when she is letting something feel real before she commits to feeling it. "Mom," she said. "Yeah, I don't want to go back there. To Grandma's. I don't want to try anymore." "You don't have to," I said. "Is that okay? To just stop?" I walked over to where she was standing and looked out the window with her, at the small, unremarkable backyard with its wooden fence and its inherited herb garden, and I thought about how many years I had spent trying to earn something that was never going to be offered. How much of my daughter's childhood I had let be colored by the hope that her grandmother would eventually see her. "It's more than okay," I said. "It's exactly right." Chloe leaned her head against my shoulder for a moment. Just for a moment. Then she straightened up and pulled out her phone to take a photo of the backyard to send to her friend. We drove home with the windows down, the late summer air moving through the car. Chloe played a song I didn't know from her playlist and tapped her thumb against her knee to the beat. She looked easy and unburdened. She looked like a girl with a future she was allowed to be excited about. I merged onto the highway and let myself feel exactly what I felt. Not triumphant, not bitter. Something more like the particular lightness of a person who has set down a weight they did not realize they were carrying and is only now, in its absence, beginning to understand how heavy it was. They had wanted me compliant. They had wanted me grateful and manageable and just guilty enough to keep paying for their comfort. They had never once considered that the thing keeping me in place was not love, but the belief that love might still arrive if I was patient enough. I had stopped being patient. Chloe turned the music up. I merged left and let the distance grow.